we start.
Yes.
Thanks again for the opportunity to have this interview. After the US election, you wrote on Twitter, "Let's now make the Netherlands great again." Am I sitting in front of the Dutch Donald Trump?
Well, I'm not Donald Trump. I'm my own man, so I'm not the Dutch Donald Trump, but the Dutch Geert Wilders. But of course, many people in Europe are inspired by what is happening around the Western world. We saw last year first that the British people decided to vote for Brexit. Nobody expected it, at least the political elite thought it would never happen. And still, the people showed that they were in charge of their own destiny and voted for Brexit. And then in the United States, indeed, also what a lot of people did not expect, Mr. Trump became president on issues that might not be exactly the same, but it's the same kind of movement and ideas with all the differences that making your own country first, being independent, having concerns about immigration, the jobs of your own people. And it happened. So indeed, I believe what I call the patriotic spring that is happening maybe all over the Western world, from America to Britain, from the Netherlands to later this year perhaps in France and Austria and in other countries.
What did you personally learn from the victory of Donald Trump? What did you change after that in your politics?
Well, not so much. You know, I'm involved with those kind of issues since I started my Party for Freedom 10 years ago. And I speak a lot and I travel a lot to the United States, also within the grand old party, the Republican Party, and I knew things would happen. I mean, your colleagues, the Dutch journalist, laughed at me when I said last year that Mr. Trump is going to win. I was the only one in Holland who predicted his victory, and people thought I was a crazy guy who said something, some dream about himself. But I knew it would happen. You know, you saw in America with what the Americans call the blue-collar people, the normal, hardworking, average people who are not earning too much money, but the core business of a society and an economy, that they were even discontent with the Republican Party in itself. We see the same in many European countries where the current leaders, where the old political parties are not representing a vast amount of people in their societies anymore.
If you say the Netherlands have to become great again, in which way are they belittled now?
Well, first, we are not a real sovereign state. I believe that we gave our national sovereignty to an institution called the European Union. I love Europe, but I'm very much against the European Union. For instance, we are not in charge of our own immigration policy, of our own fiscal policy, of our own banking policy. And it's like anybody at home who is watching your program today, if you have no borders and no control over your own immigration policy, it is as if in your own house you don't have the key from your own front door, and you are not allowed to tell people when to enter your home or when to leave, when they are guests. So we are totally not really independent. A country, a democracy needs a nation state, it needs to be independent, needs to have its own flag and values. It's not bigotry or racism, it's patriotism. And the patriotism is on the rise today. So I would try to regain our national sovereignty and be independent, and let the Dutch people and the Dutch government and parliament decide of its own destiny again.
So you would close the Dutch borders and control everybody who gets in and out?
Well, I would not close it for everybody, but yes, I would like to have, again, border control. And not only because I believe that Europe is unwilling, not only unable, but also unwilling to do so. But I think we cannot afford, and the people don't want to afford, again, those kind of immigration flaws that we have had in the last few years. Only in Germany, 1.5 million people. In Holland it was less, but still, for a relatively small country as Holland, we had an enormous influx of people as well. But it's not only about that, you know. If you look at the future, the UN came with a report a few months ago that said that Africa, the continent Africa, in the end of this century will quadruple from 1 billion people to 4 billion people. And that same report stated that 31% of those people will probably immigrate to our side of the globe. And what happened last year with Syria and all the asylum seekers coming to Europe, most of them were not asylum seekers, but still migrants who came to Europe and traveled through several safe countries before they came to Germany or Holland, and will be nothing that we are going to see in the next decade. So we have to, it's an existential problem. If we want to survive as a nation and don't want to become part of something that we are not, we have to start getting in control and stop closing our borders.
You said that the European Union is not also only unable but also unwilling to change the situation. Yes. Are people, leaders in Brussels, from your perspective, they're voluntarily harming the future of the European people? And who?
Yes,
who is Brussels?
Let me give you one example. I saw it myself on TV, Mr. Juncker, when he prepared the summit of Malta, that was in Malta last Friday. He said that he wanted to deal, and they were once again unsuccessful, with the migration from Libya. And he explained to the press, as a press conference, why he made that summit. And he did not say, because I want our people to have less immigrants, or I want our identity to stay as it is today. He said to the press, we need Malta because otherwise the populist will win in Europe. That was his incentive to get a Malta summit going. And the combination of that with most of the political leaders that are not only multiculturalists, but are cultural relativists, people who believe that cultures are equal. And you know, the combination of two things...
You don't think though?
Sorry?
You don't think so, that cultures are equal?
No, I think that what your country, the Germans, call a Leitkultur. A country should have a Leitkultur, not a monoculture, but a Leitkultur. We should have, and I believe our societies and our values are based on Christianity, on Judaism, on humanism. And that doesn't mean that nothing else is welcome, but we should be proud and we should make sure that our own culture is leading, is dominant, is our Leitkultur. That is what we should fight for. And most of the people in charge today don't see that, believe that cultures are equal. And once again, the combination of a mass immigration and the lack of demanding from immigrants to immigrate, of to integrate or assimilate, is killing for any society. If you are not proud on who you are, and if you don't ask people to integrate and to assimilate, to make our values their values, to don't act like Sharia law, but according to our constitution, to not commit terroristic crimes and not to let women stay at home and not work or not do all those kind of things, we will lose our identity and who we are. And that is why we need new leadership all over Europe.
But does that mean that the Netherlands aren't capable of integrating the people? So isn't it like a failure of the Dutch society to integrate the people?
Well, you are completely right. I'm first and foremost not even blaming the people. I am blaming the leaders who allowed this to happen. The cultural relativists that in the last decades, and not only in Holland, all over Europe, decided that immigration was a good thing, that we should not bother people too much by adapting to our values and constitution. And people often, we have here in Holland, many people, older people from first and second generation that still, after living 30 or 40 years in Holland, don't speak more than a few words of Dutch, and have still values that their children makes it more difficult to integrate in the Dutch society. So yes, I blame both the people, but more the leaders who allow this to happen. And that, in combination with the European Union, you know, the European Union, which started off very well as an economical cooperation, became, as you know, a political body. And the European Union robbed us of our nation states, tried and got sovereign rights, both politically, but also in the Eurozone economically, from the member states. And that took away our identity. And if you don't know who you are, you don't know what you are not either. And I want to regain the self-consciousness of our people, the independency and the sovereignty of our people. And I'm sure that in that process you can also regain your immigration policy.
But isn't it a little bit too easy to say they robbed us from all the sovereignty? Isn't it exactly?
No, you are completely right. They robbed us because we are part of them. I mean, the European Union, we have all commissioners. Every country has a commissioner. In the past, even more. And we were even one of the founding fathers of the European Union. If I say they robbed us, I'm talking about our leaders at that time as well. We gave them, maybe that's a better explanation, we gave them our sovereignty. And we did not get it back. You know, my party supported a minority government for 2 years. The first Rutte government only existed because my party at that time supported it. And we made a deal. We said, well, in exchange for our support for 50 billion of austerity measures, we would get a tougher immigration policy. And we didn't get it. Our Minister of Immigration traveled all over Europe, and he did not get a majority that was needed in the Council of Ministers to get our immigration sovereignty back to Amsterdam, to The Hague. So it's like a monster, you know, you give something and you will never get it back or in return. We were not as clever as the Danish to have some kind of a special treatment and an opt-out. We did not get it, so you won't get it. And I'm sure that the last days of the European Union, it's like the old Roman Empire, are coming. It's a matter of time.
Do you think you're the leader of the Partei for Freedom? Many people say Angela Merkel is the last leader of the free Western world. Do you agree with that? Or
the last leader of the free Western world?
Yeah.
Well, you know, I'm not the biggest fan of Angela Merkel. She's very long in office. Many of the leaders in Europe are, at least the parties, long in office. And I think that what Merkel stands for, I don't have anything against her personally, let's make that clear, but the policy she stands for, which is the policy of cultural relativism, which is the policy of open door, her policy for Germany to let people in is something that many European countries had to face the consequences because of it. And I think that was a very bad idea, and I think we cannot afford to do that. So yes, indeed, the symbol of Angela Merkel, once again, not her personally, but the symbol of Angela Merkel is the symbol of the past that I believe will have the last political days very soon to come.
in your program, it starts right away with you want to get Islam out of the Netherlands again. Why is that? Why do you focus so much on one religion?
Well, you know, it's not exactly true that I want to have all Islam out of the Netherlands, but maybe we can talk about that later. I believe that Islam and freedom are incompatible. I'm not talking about the people. Before I got this security, personal problem with my personal security 12 years ago, and this 24/7 protection, because I'm on the hit list of Al-Qaeda and the Taliban, I traveled to almost every Islamic country. I was many times in Iran, in Iraq, in Syria, in Egypt, in Jordan. And I found very friendly, nice, and often very interesting people. So I have not a real problem with Muslims, as some people try to believe. But I believe that the Islamic ideology is very dangerous. Islam, the word itself means submission, as you know. Islam, as an ideology, does not allow freedom. Look at all the countries, almost all the countries in the world where Islam is dominant. You see a total lack of civil society, of rule of law, of freedom for either your journalist or a woman or a Christian or even somebody who wants to leave Islam, an apostate. So I believe at the end of the day that the influx of more Islam in Europe will cost us our freedom. Islam, according to my party, is not so much to be compared with other religions, but should be compared with other totalitarian ideologies that we saw in the past, like communism or fascism. Not only is the Quran more full of anti-Semitism than Mein Kampf, that other terrible book, ever was, but one token of proof of totalitarianism is that you are not allowed to leave. That's the proof of totalitarianism. There are many books, even Bukowski wrote books about that, the dissidents from Poland in the past. And you are allowed to leave Christianity or Judaism and become an atheist or another follower of another religion. You are not allowed to leave fascism. You are not allowed to leave communism. And still today, in Holland, in Germany, in the Arab and Islamic world, you are not allowed. The penalty is death if you want to leave Islam, if you want to become a Christian or if you want to become an atheist. It's not possible. And that kind of thinking, that kind of violence in an ideology is something that we should not import.
But when you ask your supporters, do you want more or less Moroccans here? You didn't ask, do you want more or less radical Islamists here? You asked Moroccans, so that the message you get across is completely different from that.
No, but the people understood what I meant. Ask them. You know, in Holland, that's different. You don't have Moroccans. You have other minority groups. We have Moroccans as the group number one in Holland as a minority group. And everybody knows in Holland that Moroccans are overrepresented in all the wrong statistics. The Moroccan youth under the age of 22, 60% of them have been arrested at least once by the police. They are 22 times overrepresented when it comes to street crimes and things like that. They are overrepresented many times when it comes to dependency on social schemes. So people know that if you talk about that, why you do. I did not. There was a reason that I did not say, do you want more or less Swedish or Canadians? There was a reason that I said Moroccans, and most people understood. And indeed, we have a problem with not only Moroccans, and not all Moroccans, but Moroccans, as we have with so many other groups that are based on Islamic culture.
But in a situation like the ones we are talking about, when you ask, do you want more or less Moroccans, aren't you afraid a little bit of that? You're really inspiring much more hate, especially with people who don't differentiate so much as you do now in the interview.
And you know, as I said before, I often go to America, and I spoke to a former governor in Texas not so long ago. And he knew that I was going to trial for that reason. And he said, well, Mr. Wilders, first, nationality is not a race, and second, you don't know, there is not one single politician in the state of Texas that hasn't said at least once a week that we want less Mexicans. It's not hate speech. You can say in Germany, I want less Dutch. I can say I want less Swedish. I mean, it has nothing to do with hate or race. You can say it. Yeah, we are a free country. We have the freedom of speech. And once again, I did not say it without a reason. And the reason is
but your Dutch constitution also guarantees freedom of religion. So, and you're very much on Islam and
yes.
Muslims. So are you then in contradiction to your own constitution?
Well, this is debated a lot of times also in our Dutch parliament. It's a very good question. I believe, as I told you before, that Islam is dressed up as a religion. It has a holy book, it has a temple, it has followers, but indeed is not a religion, but has to be seen more as an ideology, as a totalitarian ideology. Therefore, I believe that our constitution should not apply to something that is dressed up as a religion, but actually is more an ideology than a religion. So you're once again, this is my point of view. I understand that the majority thinks different.
But so you say the religion Islam that I thought I knew does not really exist?
I believe, I can only speak for myself, and I admit that this is not the majority view even in my own parliament. So, but you ask me, you don't ask, I'm not talking for my party and not for the majority in the Dutch parliament. I believe that it should be treated as an ideology more than a religion.
And if you're about to come to power, you're going to change the Dutch constitution on that? And saying Islam, don't be mistaken, is not a religion.
Well, if you understand me correctly, I'm saying it's more an ideology than a religion. So the constitution, the right for free religion would not even apply, because you could consider it not as a religion but as an ideology. Then again, that probably won't be supported by too many other parties. A change of the constitution would probably not be supported either. But still, we have to stop the Islamization of our country. So we could set major steps, you know. I tried and advocated so many times that we should not only stop the immigration from Islamic countries, but also people that are already here. If you abide the law, if you address the constitution and our values, you are, whether you're green, yellow or black, Muslim, Christian or Hindu, you are equal as anybody else, and you are welcome to stay. Muslim or not, I have no problem with anybody. But if you start acting according to Sharia law, If you want to mutilate the genitals of a woman, what happens? If you want to throw or kill homosexuals, or keep your wife at home, or once again act according to this terrible Sharia law. And I hope a lot of people believe me that Sharia law and freedom are really totally incompatible. Then you commit a crime. I believe that if you have a double nationality, and most of the people in Holland, for instance Moroccans, do, that we should strip you of the Dutch nationality and send you away. The government is doing it already, by the way, when it goes for terrorists. Terrorists are already in Holland. We just accepted, our Senate 2 days ago, this law. The Dutch law today says that if you're a terrorist, you're committed a crime, you're sentenced, we can strip you of your nationality from Holland and send you packing. And I'm saying apply that law as well for other crimes for people who have a double nationality.
I would like to go on to the Nexit topic.
Yes.
What is exactly the problem with the European Union?
Well, Nexit is, there are two sides. There's a political side and an economical side. So for me and my party, leaving the European Union and leaving the Eurozone are one and the same thing. Politically, I told you before, I believe that it started very well with in 1957, the EEC, economical cooperation. If it would be still like that, I would probably never have advocated the Nexit. But economical cooperation transferred in a political union, where either they took it away, or, as you corrected me quite well, we gave away our national sovereignty, and we are not in charge anymore of most of the things that a country should be in charge of. The key to our front door, our budget policy when it comes to the Eurozone, our immigration policy, our fiscal policy, where certainly the southern countries are trapped within. They cannot change their economy as they should. So I believe we should get it back and still work together. I don't want to build walls around Holland. I want to work together. My example is Switzerland. You know, Switzerland is a country in the heart of Europe, but outside the European Union. Still has access to the internal market, pays a price for that, I understand that, but is more flexible. For instance, Switzerland had a free trade agreement with China and Japan long before Europe did. The European Union was still fighting between the 28 on which conditions they should negotiate with Japan and China, and Switzerland already had. If Switzerland has a problem, it's only because their currency is sometimes too strong, but not that it's economically bad performing or has no national sovereignty.
Would you like the others to stick together then? Because it's much easier if you have a big block in front of your front door instead of dealing with Germany, Belgium on its own.
Now, I only speak for my own country, but I believe that the European Union, like the old Roman Empire, the last days have already started. I don't know whether it's 2, 3, 5 or 10 years, but the end of both the Eurozone, which is a total mess, with banking problems in Italy, with Greece. You see a rehearsal of all the problems that we had in the past, a real transfer union where the Dutch and the Germans and other richer countries are paying for the South money that we will probably never see back in any return. So I think those supranational organizations that have every day again less support among the common people. Don't get me wrong, this is really happening today. In Holland, the people had in the last 5 years had 50 billion euros of austerity measures in the last 7 years, I have to say. The two governments of Rutte, 50 billion euros of austerity measures. Pensions were cut, public health were cut, taxes were raised, and people saw at the same time that not only billions were spent on the asylum process and on development schemes in Africa, but also the Greek people, the Italian people, the Portuguese in the past, the Irish even. But the money went everywhere, and this does not help.
But the Netherlands didn't pay 50 billion euros for development aid or for border controls. Apparently you lack the money.
No, we have, I said 50 billion was the amount of the austerity measures that we made in Holland. And the Dutch pay more than 4 billion on development scheme every year. More than 4 billion. So only when it comes to development in 10 years' time you have 40 billion of Dutch euros. We are, when it comes to Brussels, per capita, the biggest net contributor to the European Union. And I had a lunch yesterday and I had a speech for 6 Eastern European ambassadors who, in a way, often shared my view when it came to immigration and toughening it up, as you know that their policy is. But they were very happy to stay in the European Union, and I can understand it because they are the net receiver of the funds of the European Union. We have the worst deal. We lost national sovereignty, we spent the biggest money both to the European Union, and when it comes to the Eurozone, we are, like Germany, paying the most for the countries that have no discipline economically at all.
Assuming you're going to be the next Prime Minister of the Netherlands, how would you proceed in getting out of the European Union? How would it happen? Like in France, with a referendum, or?
You know, I would want to leave as soon as possible. I have to be honest to you that if I would be able to form a government, which is tough enough, because many parties say that they don't want to govern with me, so this is already a problem number one. But if I resolve that problem, which can only happen if we really would become a big party, then I would ask them to leave. They probably would say no. And then a compromise could be a referendum, yes. So we are, as Germany is, not a two-party system. We have a multi-party system. We have a coalition government. So I would most probably not get my way in leaving immediately. And a consensus could be, a compromise could be that, as in Britain, I would ask for a referendum about the Dutch leaving both the European Union and the Eurozone.
Since you're very close to the new US government, do you share their perspective that Germany takes advantage of the European countries by the means of the European Union?
Well, I'm not close to the American government. I never met them. I never met Mr. Trump, so it's more an ideological thing, perhaps, with all the differences then.
But as somebody who was at the Republican convention,
sure,
you can
I have
assume...
good contacts in the Republican Party, which is, you can have good contacts in the CDU, CSU, without having contacts in the German Bundeskanzlei. So it's not the same. Still, you know, Germany is an important country. Germany is a strong country, both economically and politically, as France is. So I'm not blaming any country to be strong. I want the Dutch to be strong. I'm a Dutch politician, so I want my country to be strong, and I believe that within the European Union we lack national sovereignty, and within the Eurozone we are losing our money. So we have, on both times, you have a very bad deal. And I'm not pointing at France or Germany. You should have a policy on your own strength, not by pointing to somebody else. So Germany is fighting for its own interest. They should do that, and if they get the best deal, they've done a good job. Unfortunately, my government is doing a very bad deal, a very bad job, and we get a very bad deal. And I want to change the Dutch policy, and the German politicians should deal with the German situation. You are a sovereign country.
You said you're a Dutch politician who cares about the Netherlands. Nevertheless, just 2 weeks ago you met with Marine Le Pen and Frauke Petry in Koblenz. What was that about, if you're all nationalists in a way?
No, you know, there's no contradiction at all. We have similar parties in different European countries. We are working together in an institution that we don't like either, called the European Parliament. And in the European Parliament, as you know, parties who share the ideology from many countries work together. You have liberals there, you have Christian Democrats, you have all kinds of ideologies working together. I believe, and they don't always share their views, our own Christian Democrats, your Christian Democrats from your Bundeskanzlerin, worked together for many years with Mr. Berlusconi from the Bunga Bunga party. Nobody ever complained about that. So it's people finding one another.
Is there something to complain about in working together with the Front National or AfD?
No, but it means that we work together on the issues that we share the same views, which is the case when we are both or all critical on the European Union. Not every party wants to leave the European Union, but are critical on it. We are critical on the immigration issues, but on many issues we don't agree. But we work together on the issues that we agree on, and that's why we work together. And it's a good thing, you know. It's a good thing that people see that we, in our respective countries, where the patriots, as we see ourselves, are gaining ground, that people can look that we are serious politicians. That even if, as you said before, the European Union would, and I predict you it will, collapse one day soon, that as individual countries, we can work together, and we should work together. Once again, I am for the Dutch leaving the European Union, but I'm still for cooperation, both when it comes to internal market or economy. We could also believe, there was in the past, you know, you had this Treaty of Prüm, the German city Prüm. There was a treaty where, and later it was incorporated in the European Union laws. But the Treaty of Prüm was a very good example. It was a multinational treaty where, to fight crime and terrorism, countries that were either member of the European Union or not, worked together because they had a mutual interest. And I always used in my parliament the Treaty of Prüm as an example. You can, without a political union, if you share and you have a common interest, like fighting crime or terrorism or working together when it comes to free trade, you can work together with a separate treaty. You don't need a political institution as the European Union to do that.
Did you feel completely comfortable being, together with a party like the AfD that really thinks Germany should reconsider its approach to Holocaust, and who lets people in the party that really, say we should get rid of that in a way, to put it shortly. Did you feel comfortable? You also very much in favor of accepting homosexuality.
Yes.
I saw the reaction in Koblenz, and I also had the feeling, I don't know whether you felt comfortable in that moment. Did you feel the differences also?
Of course there are differences, and except for the Holocaust that I found a total crazy remark from that person from the AfD. And I said it, people, journalists like yourself, asked me in Koblenz at the press conference and afterwards, and I said what I think about it. And it was not Frauke Petry, but it were other people from a party not being present there. And to tell you honest, I did not agree with that at all. But when it comes to, for instance, my love for Israel or my liberal positions on homosexuality, if you don't share that view, you are not a bad person. You know, you could get rid of half the Dutch parliament who have different ideas, or maybe even the German Bundestag, who many people think different about it. You are allowed in a free society to differ about that kind of issues. And I'm perhaps more conservative on certain issues, and on other issues I'm more liberal. That's not a problem. Once again, we are working together on the basis of where we have consensus. If you look at the economic policy, there are lots of differences between, for instance, Front National and my party. Front National, I shall not exaggerate, but wants to almost nationalize parts of their industry. I would never do that. I'm for a kind of Reagan-like agenda, small government, lower taxes, and would do exactly the opposite. Still, I have, on the other issues, more in common with Front National when it comes to Europe, national sovereignty, immigration, than I have with most of the other parties in the Dutch parliament. So you can work together. We are not making it and converging to one party. We are working together. And I have a lot of respect for Frauke Petry. She had an excellent speech in Koblenz. I think she's a very brave woman. And I support her. And I think she's an excellent leader of the Alternative for Deutschland.
What do you see in Marine Le Pen? Is she the front runner among the three of you? What is her position in your movement?
She is a very strong woman. Maybe she's the front runner, I don't know. She could be the president of France. I hope she will be the president of France. So she's certainly a front runner there. And well, I respect her a lot. You know, I had a lot of problems with her father. I have a total hate for anything that has to do with anti-Semitism. And I would not have come close to Front National if her father was still in charge. When she came in charge, the leader, I contacted her and we had a lot of discussions. And I'm fully convinced that she's okay and that she would be an excellent, not only leader of the Front National, but also an excellent president of France. And I hope she will win. And I'm sure she will win. I'm not sure, but she probably wins the first round. And I hope she will also win the second round of the French election. She's a very strong woman. She's a patriotic woman. Once again, on economical, maybe some Middle Eastern issues, we don't agree on everything 100%. But on the most important issues, the regaining of the national sovereignty of France, a referendum about the European Union, her position about immigration. I think France could not wish for a better leader to have. And as I said in Koblenz, I think that, but I'm not a Dutch politician or a German politician. I think, as I said there, that Germany also needs Frauke statt Angela. But that's for your voters to decide.
Last question concerning your party itself. You're very much in favor of direct democracy, referendum, but in your party, it's only you who calls the shot. How does this fit together?
I wish that was true. No, it's not. It's not true. You know, you have to make a difference between the political decision making in Parliament and the party. In Parliament, we have a full fraction and we decide on everything and we vote. And I often belong to the minority and then I don't get my way when we vote about a law or anything else. So in the day-to-day political basis in Parliament, I'm the leader of the fraction, of the group in Parliament. But I follow always the majority, and often I am, luckily, in the majority, otherwise I should be a bad leader. But I don't always win. We do it collectively. Then you have the party. And the party is totally uninteresting, unlike in Germany. In Holland, 1.8% of the Dutch people are member of a political party. So almost nobody is member of a political party. If you go and walk in the street, you ask 100 people, you will find maybe 2 who are a member of the party. That is not our tradition. And within the party, indeed, I am the only member. And there are other parties who have maybe 20,000, 10,000, 30,000 members. I believe the biggest has 50,000 members out of a population of 17 million. So it's almost nothing. And what the party does is to make a list for the next elections. But
I assume there are people who would like to become members, and apparently it's not that easy to become a member of the Partei for the Freiheit.
No, it's not only not easy, it's impossible. Because I want...
That's my point.
Exactly, and that I will never change that. And I learned that from the old Pim Fortuyn. I don't know if you know the name Pim Fortuyn. Pim Fortuyn was a hero who was, before I started my own party, addressing the problems that I'm addressing now. And unfortunately, he was killed and murdered by a radical Muslim some time ago. Still, after his death, the party won enormous, I believe 26 seats in parliament, 1/6 of the parliament. And after 4 years, everything was gone. And the reason was, and these members of those parties taught me that and learned me that they opened the door for the party very soon, and the wrong people became a member, the people with different interests. And they only argued, and they had fights, and they had everything. And that taught me, I have a very young party. We only exist 10 years, which is very young. That you should build a party, and you should build it slowly. You kill your party if you open it for everybody immediately. But the real democratic decisions, every motion, every law, every debate we have with any minister or state secretary in parliament, we decide with the majority of our fraction and group, and we vote about that if necessary. And I follow. And once again, I don't always win. So make a distinction, please, between the party system, which is totally in Dutch for many people to become a member of the party. Even the biggest party has only The governing parties have maybe 30, 40,000 members. It's nothing. And
in
so
the
that's
polls,
how
you are the leading party.
Yes, yes, which means not that my party will become bigger, but which means that if that would become a reality, that we would have the most amount of seats in our lower house. But then those people decide about everything. Like in the fraction in the Bundestag, every group decides as a majority. So the idea that, and I know it's a nice idea to play with, that here is Mr. Wilders as the leader of North Korea and he decides everything, I don't even wish it was true, but it's not true.
Thank you very much.
It's my pleasure.